What's a real-life glitch you've experienced that you still can't explain? When I was about 13-14, I went on a trip to another state with my church youth group. We drove through the country for hours in a region I had never been to before. Eventually we ended up in a small town. I was looking out the window and realized I knew this town as if I had lived there before. Like I knew the post office would be a few blocks ahead on the right, and then sure enough there it was. Weirder, I knew what the buildings would look like. I predicted the location of all the landmarks in the town before we were close enough to see them, and all the predictions were correct. It was very spooky and got the other kids on the bus a little riled up. Years ago I was driving home late from work, and as I was waiting at an intersection my whole car jerked violently to the right. It actually lifted off the ground and sent my drink flying. I looked up and saw the light was green, so I restarted the car, manual transmission. It stalled, and started to go through and pull over to check for damage. At that moment a drunk woman in an SUV ran the red light and smashed into a power transformer. If whatever happened to me hadn't, I would have been T-boned on my driver door. I called 911, and stayed to give my statement, but I think the woman died as the ambulance did not have sirens on when it left. I once bought 3 rotisserie chickens on clearance, $2 each. I picked at one of them on the drive home. Get home, lock my car. For once. I rarely lock it. I have 2 chickens with me, and a pizza, and I was too lazy to grab the 3rd chicken. It was like 10 degrees outside. I wasn't worried about spoilage, figured I'd grab it in the morning. I know for sure I left the chicken on the floor of my car in front of the passenger seat. Yet the next morning, it was gone. Vanished. No sign of it anywhere. Where did my chicken go? Did you check across the road? I swear I've witnessed frame rate lag. Edit. I was completely sober. Me too. Recently I was walking a distance and the footpath just kept doing this weird stuff like it was computerized or something. Really difficult to describe. Almost like it was flickering. Constantly. I drove nearly 14 miles on autopilot. Like cross-eyed zoned the duck out in thought and didn't once veer off the road. Also a friend of mine managed to phase through a locked door and had to knock on it till his dad woke up and let him in. It was a sliding door with a trigger latch, no way to lock it and go outside. Google highway hypnosis. It happens and I hear it's intense. I had left my cell phone, this was 2006, so it was an LG flip phone, on the charger when I went to work. After an 8-hour shift I got home and grabbed it. There was a voicemail from an unknown number. I listened to it and it was a man saying he had just received a call from my number and wanted to make sure it wasn't someone he knew that needed something. I checked the call log and sure enough at 2 p.m., about 3 hours before I was home, my phone called a number. I called him back and asked if someone said anything. At this point I was convinced someone broke in. He said he could hear someone talking in the background but it wasn't something he could understand, that's why he called back. I never figured out if it was a polite intruder using my phone without stealing anything or something more spiritual. I'm not a believer in ghosts, but quite a few unexplainable things happened in that house. A friend of mine, that I hadn't spoken to in a while, and I booked the exact same resort at the exact same time on the other side of the world, Florida, without even knowing the other one was planning to go on a trip. I traveled back to my hometown to visit relatives. On second day back, I went to bed, blinked, and suddenly it was daylight. Apparently I had slept an entire 36 hours, but my relatives remembered me doing various activities, washing dishes, eating dinner, shopping, etc. Though nobody actually saw me around. I had something similar happen to me a long time ago when I was a kid. I was laying in bed looking out my window at night and blinked. After I blinked it was day out and I hadn't even moved an inch. I usually am restless when I sleep, so being in the exact same position was weird. I also felt fully rested, but was very confused. I had a dream where I was watching my brother play video games and saw him parachute out of a jet in BF4, then smack into a wall and die on impact. The next night my brother was playing BF4, jumped out of the jet, pulled his parachute, hit the wall and died. Except before he pulled his parachute I instinctively blurted out that the wall was going to kill him seconds before he came close to the ground. He still brings up that weird circumstance. I was meeting someone at the train station from Craigslist to buy my old phone for $200. He let me know when he was going to arrive and what he would be wearing. I got there, saw a guy that matched the description and showed him the phone. He took a look, gave me $200 and went on his way. As I started walking back home, I got a phone call from the original buyer telling me he just got to the train station and was looking for me. I had no idea what to say. Who the duck did I sell my phone to? When I was about 11 years old, I was playing with my younger sister and two friends at the bottom of their garden. It was a semi-rural area and there was a cow field that stretched away for about a mile, and then there was a motorway. There was no visual change in our surroundings, yet suddenly the cows stopped making any sound at all and we couldn't hear the traffic on the motorway, which was usually constant. We all froze as we sensed something. The air felt heavy as if it was pushing down on us, and we all felt a prickly heat on any exposed skin. It lasted a good 10 seconds and then stopped as fast as it had started. The cows went crazy and the traffic sounds returned. We all agreed we felt it. I wonder what strange weather systems were at play that day. My mum came home from work once and saw me walk out of my room. She called out to me and I didn't answer. I didn't answer because I was at my friend's house. A friend of mine and I used to joke about how our backpacks had black holes, which was why we could all our stuff in it. A good while into this, we found each other's stuff in our backpacks. This happened multiple times, too. After it kept happening, we reasoned out that it was most likely that we were dropping our stuff into the other's backpack without noticing, but the chances of that were lower than the frequency at which it was happening. What really screamed at me that something was wrong was when 3 of his pens in his pen collection ended up not in my backpack, but in the pocket of my jacket weeks after he lost them. I like to think that whenever we come to agree upon something, it'll happen, which is why I'm glad we both also joke about and discuss becoming gods and our plans when we do. Unfortunately, these occurrences have ceased lately, so I guess the magic has worn. This is a small one, but I bought a new TV. The next day, one of the lunch ladies at my high school, who knew me by name, asked, "How are you enjoying your new TV?" I replied that it was pretty nice and went on like normal. Only an hour later did I realize that she mentioned the TV I just bought the day before. I felt some Truman Show-esque vibes. I asked her how she knew the next day and she didn't seem to know what I meant. Pretty sure my grandma told her about it and she just mentioned it for some small talk, but it screwed me up for the full day. Went out of state to a casino with my family. The casino had 2 floors, it kind of looked like a mall. You could see the top floor just by looking up and you got to the top floor by using an escalator. The bathroom was on the top floor and my mom went to the bathroom alone. She was gone for about 15 minutes before I went looking for her. I checked the restroom and she wasn't in there. The rest of my family, 5 people, spread out to look for her and met back by the escalator and no one could find her. I was holding her phone for her so I couldn't call her. I saw a suspicious-looking man standing by the ladies' room the entire time we were looking and I thought maybe he killed her and stuffed her in the trash, or maybe he killed her in the men's room. I'm irrational when I'm in panic mode, so I checked the 2. Finally, after another few minutes, my mum comes down the escalator looking zoned out. I was so relieved to see her. She was tripping out because she said she took the escalator and it took her to another building across the street and then back to where we were, even though she got on the right escalator. I swear there was only 2, one going up, and another going down. The crazy part was that the buildings weren't even connected at all. I went to this psychic with my mum for fun and we both got readings. It was interesting, but one weird thing really stuck out for its specificity. The psychic told my mom that my deceased grandpa was telling her to check the furnace. Weird and random. A little bit of time goes by and my mom has the furnace checked and serviced. The repair guy comes out and says, "I can see you have a carbon monoxide detector, but you've had so much leaking out, I don't know how it didn't go off and how your cat isn't dead by now." No one in the house was experiencing any symptoms of exposure to it yet, thankfully. Carbon monoxide is odorless, so it's not like the psychiatrist could have smelled it on us, but thanks for saving our lives, lady. I think you meant psychic in the last paragraph. It's a tough economy. Everyone needs a second job. I had a friend that lived on a farm which had all sorts of big farming-esque equipment on it. He said that one winter day he was riding his snowmobile and wasn't really paying attention to his surroundings. When he looked up going 20 miles per hour or so, there was a giant blade from one of the farm equipment that would have been right at neck level if riding a snowmobile. He said that there was no way he could have dodged it, So he just closed his eyes and assumed that was the end for him. When nothing happened, he opened his eyes and looked back to see the snowmobile tracks passing right where the blade was sticking out, but he was intact. I'm late, but here's hoping someone sees it. I was in my grandparents' van and felt something thunk on my head. I reach up to find a dime on top of my head. There was nowhere it could have come from. We were inside the van and the door was closed, and the visor was way in front of where I was. On top of that, my mom saw it fall out of the corner of her eye. All I can figure was I prayed for money and God thought that would be a funny way to fulfill the request. Next time try to specify a dollar amount. My mom, my brother, and I were driving home one night. We were talking and suddenly it seemed like we were a lot further along than we should have been. Either me or my brother said something and my mom looked at the clock. It had been 10 minutes since we'd left where we'd been, baseball field, and it should have taken us 30+ minutes to get to where we were. None of us can explain it. I posted this before. Was walking across an open parade ground, on a military base, and at one point I passed a couple people. With the people there was a small individual. This language matters. It was dressed in clothes that didn't make sense. I know it sounds weird, but that's the only way I can describe it. It was dressed as if it was trying to dress like a human, but wasn't really sure how that might look. As I passed it said in a kind of sing-songy way, "How are you doing?" I instantly got chills and kept walking. Being a huge skeptic though, reason grabbed me and I turned around to see what the hell just happened. The only thing I saw were the people standing there, the other thing was gone. No idea what the hell that was all about. I still weirdly remember this to this day. I was 7-8 years old watching the Mets in the playoffs and my mom said I had to go to bed. My dad asked me, "Who do you think is going to win?" The Mets were down but the game was close. I'm not sure why, but I said Robin Ventura is going to hit a grand slam to win the game. My dad was just like, "Okay, shut up." If anyone knows baseball, you'll know this is a lofty prediction, very lofty. Next thing I know, my dad wakes me up at midnight and tells me the Mets won on a Robin Ventura grand slam. He was freaked the duck out and I couldn't sleep that night. My mum thought I was a psychic, which I don't think I am. I have no idea why I felt that was going to happen and it's one of the most memorable times of my childhood. Ducking weird. What is your real life glitch? Comment down below. This is Reddit Reloaded, signing off.